The courtroom was too quiet. Only the echo of polished shoes and the hollow hum of air conditioning filled the space. I stood by the defendant's table, alone. No lawyer, no papers, no fear. Just a file in my hand, thick and heavy like the years it carried. Across from me sat my father. Immaculate suit, polished watch, and that same smirk he wore when he used to tell me I'd never make it without him. His new wife sat behind him, whispering something about finally getting what's owed. He didn't look at me as the bailiff read his name, but when mine followed, Captain, the air shifted. I caught the judge's eyes. He froze mid-note. His pen trembled slightly before he coughed into his hand and said, "Captain, please have a seat." That was the first time I realized this wouldn't be a trial. It would be an autopsy of a family, of a man who thought his blood made him untouchable. The lawsuit was simple on paper: unpaid debt, $200,000. My father claimed he'd loaned it to me years ago when I joined the service. There was no record, no contract, just his word against mine. He thought that would be enough. It always had been. But this wasn't the same world, and I wasn't the same son. As I sat in that courtroom, I remembered his voice from years ago, cold and proud. The military's just a uniform for men who couldn't run their father's businesses. He'd laughed then. My mother had stayed silent. She's been gone 6 years now. He didn't even show up to the funeral. Now he sat there, demanding money. Not because he needed it, but because he wanted to remind me who I used to be: small, obedient, dependent. I stared at him and realized he wasn't suing for money. He was suing for control. I could have hired lawyers, but I didn't. Instead, I requested access to the financial records of the supposed loan. Quietly, legally. A military friend handled it. In the meantime, I stayed silent. I showed up at every preliminary hearing with the same composure that drove him insane. He'd throw glances, mocking, impatient, but I gave him nothing back. I was studying him, the way I used to study a target before deployment: slow, methodical, detached. At night, I'd review the old bank statements, my mother's journals, the will she'd left behind, the one he never filed properly. That's when I saw it: a fund transfer, not from him to me, but from her to him. She had sold her jewelry collection to cover a gambling debt, his. He had transferred the amount into his personal account, the exact sum he now claimed I owed him. It wasn't a loan, it was her sacrifice. He was trying to make me pay her price again. When the day of the trial came, he was glowing, surrounded by attorneys, reporters, his new wife in pearls pretending to be supportive. The bailiff handed the judge the file I'd submitted that morning. The room quieted. The judge read. His eyes moved once, twice. Then he looked up at my father and said, "Mr. Langford, are you aware these financial records belong to your deceased spouse's estate?" My father blinked. Then, slower, I don't see what that has to do with—" The judge cut him off. "The $200,000 you're claiming as a loan was in fact transferred to you by your late wife, not your son." His mouth opened. No sound came. The cameras clicked. The whispers spread. I didn't move. I just watched the color drain from his face. The pale realization that his empire of lies had finally collapsed under its own arrogance. The judge closed the file. Case dismissed. Silence. Pure, surgical silence. He followed me outside after the session. "Where did you get those records?" he hissed, voice trembling with rage. I turned, looked at him, not the man, but the hollow thing he'd become. "She kept everything," I said quietly, "even the receipts for your shame." He reached for my arm. I stepped back. That single motion, the distance, was enough to end us. People were watching. For the first time in his life, he looked small. "You could have talked to me," he said. "I did," I replied. "You just never listened." Then I walked away. That night, I sat in my car outside the courthouse, the city lights flickering off the windshield. I didn't feel triumphant, not happy, just empty. Vindication is quiet. It doesn't roar. It exhales. Somewhere inside me, the boy who once begged for approval was gone. What remained was a man who finally understood that silence could be the sharpest form of revenge. I didn't destroy him. I let the truth do it for me. As I started the engine, my reflection blurred against the glass, my eyes cold, steady, unrecognizable. For the first time in my life, I looked exactly like the man he wanted me to be, only stronger and utterly beyond his reach.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and comment. Subscribe now to Cheating Stories Insight World for more amazing stories.